I'm Ron Strickland. This webcast is one of a series in which I'm providing some brief lectures and commentaries on topics from the courses I teach in literature and cultural studies. This particular installment is one of three in which I'm looking at the prologue to the Wife of Bath's tale from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and discussing the Wife of Bath's debate with the patriarchal order of Christian tradition and the Roman Catholic clergy, and her representation of her experience with men in her 5 marriages. In my last webcast, I looked at what she says about her relationships with her first 4 husbands. In this webcast, we'll be looking at her relationship with Janikin, her 5th husband. Now, of my 5th husband, I'll tell you what. God let his soul never come in hell, and yet he was to me the greatest scoundrel. He fell on my ribs one after another, and yet shall be until my final day. Now, so he was hitting her, his 5th husband. But in our bed, he was so lively and gay, and moreover, he so well could deceive me when he would have my pretty thing. One that he would on my belle chose, which is the French there. Though he had beaten me on every bone, he could win my love back again straight away. I believe I loved him best because he was of his love standoffish to me. We women have, if I shall not lie, in this matter, a curious fantasy. Note that whatever thing we may not easily have, we'll cry all day and crave for it. Forbid us a thing, and we desire it. Press on us fast, and then we will flee. We always want what we can't have. Every woman that is wise knows this. Well, my 5th husband, God bless his soul, whom I took for love and not for riches. He was formerly a clerk of Oxford, and he had left school and came to board with my close friend dwelling in our town. God have her soul. Her name was Allison. She knew my heart and also my secrets. To her I revealed all my secrets. For had my husband pissed on a wall or done a thing that should have cost his life, to her and to another worthy wife, and to my niece, whom I loved well, I would have told every one of his secrets. Whether it was that my husband pissed on a wall, which would be some embarrassment, or he had done some heinous crime, I was not loyal to him. I'd go tell on him if I knew it. So she's not faithful to her husband. Now, I'm going to skip over a little interlude that's kind of interesting. I'll just mention it. I haven't said much about the pardoner who rides with the summoner. He's another religious character on the pilgrimage. And you may recall the summoner and the pardoner ride together, and the summoner has license from the church to identify people who need to be drawn before the archdeacon's court for having committed some religious crime or sin. And he would identify someone and issue a writ of appearance, a summons to the person to come to court. But riding along with him was the pardoner. And conveniently, the pardoner had a license to pardon the summons or to tear up the summons, to forgive the sin on the spot for a small fee. And so this was how they went through the territory, supporting themselves and getting some money for the church. In the description of the pardoner, he's described in some ways that scholars believe indicated that he was homosexual. And so, as the Wife of Bath is describing how she cheats husbands and describing what her husbands have all said about the woe that is in marriage for a husband, he's listening to this, and suddenly he interrupts her tale and says, well, after hearing all this, I guess I'll never get married. I was thinking about getting married, but now I'm having second thoughts after hearing this, right? Now, why does he say this? Some scholars think that he's protesting too much and he's trying to cover the fact that he's homosexual and act like a manly man on this journey before these other people in the audience. Maybe he's to be taken sincerely. Maybe he never wanted to get married anyway. Maybe he was a confirmed bachelor, and this is just a way of affirming his confirmation, if you will, his choice and his predisposition in the first place. Anyway, she's not very impressed by what he says. Basically, she said, "Oh, shut up, kid. Let me go on with my tale." That's where we pick it up, at line 563. Now will I tell forth what happened to me. I can say that in the fields we walked, until truly we had such flirtation, this clerk and I, that for my provision for the future, I spoke to him and said to him how he, if I were a widow, should wed me. For certainly I say this for no boast, I was never yet without providing beforehand for marriage, nor for other things also. I always have a plan B. I always know what I'm going to do next. I hold a mouse's heart not worth a leak that hath but one hole to flee to. If that should fail, then all is lost. I falsely swore that he had enchanted me. My mother taught me that trick, and also I said I dreamed of him all night. He would have slain me as I lay on my back, and all my bed was full of real blood, but yet I hope that you shall do me good. For blood symbolizes gold, as I was taught, and all was false. I dreamed of it not at all. Well, never let it be said that studying literature has no purpose in life. Here's a point to note. If you are interested in someone and maybe they're not noticing you, one possible approach is to say that you've dreamed of this person. Isn't this remarkable? Very flattering to have someone dreaming of you, even if you didn't realize it would be. It's been tried and true, and sometimes it leads to something. At least it's a way of opening the conversation. But now, sir, let me see what I shall say. By God, I have my tale again. Well, when my fourth husband was on the funeral bier, I wept continuously and acted sorry, as wives must do, for it is the custom. And with my kerchief I covered my face, but because I was provided with a mate, I wept but little, and that I affirm. To church was my husband carried in the morning, with neighbors who for him made sorrow, and Janikin, our clerk, was one of those. As help me God, when I saw him go after the bier, I thought he had a pair of legs and feet so neat and fair that all my heart I gave him unto his keeping. He was, I believe, 20 years old, and I was 40, if I shall tell the truth. But yet I had always a colt's tooth. With teeth set wide apart I was, and that became me well. Yet I had always a colt's tooth, gap tooth he was, and that became me well. He was gap toothed, I recall from the other day. As help me God, I was a lusty one, and fair and rich and young and well fixed, and truly, as my husband's told me, I had the best quonium might be. I had the best pudendum that might be. I had a good cunt. For certainly I am all influenced by Venus. Venus gave me all my lust and my lecherousness, and Mars gave me my sturdy boldness. My ascendant was Taurus, and Mars was therein. Alas, that ever love was sin. I followed always my inclination by virtue of the state of the heavens at my birth. That made me that I could not withdraw my chamber of Venus from a good fellow. If you're keeping track, we've got quite a list growing now, quite a list of different terms for sexual innuendo. So here, we've had her quaint and her quonium and her pudendum and her things small and his silly instrument, and now we have her love's chamber, her chamber of Venus. And she wouldn't keep her chamber of Venus from any good fellow. This idea that the astrological sign that we were born under determines or influences our destinies was common in the 14th century, and we also see many examples of the idea in Shakespeare's plays 200 years later at the turn of the 17th century. Generally, the astrological argument is rejected or discounted in Shakespeare's plays by characters who have a more modern, practical, and skeptical disposition. It's harder to tell how seriously many people took the idea in the 14th century, but the Miller's Tale clearly ridicules Carpenter John's credulity in being tricked with Nicholas's ruse of astrological wisdom. And these arguments from the wife of Bath also seem clearly intended to evoke laughter. Her arguments are all so one-sided and self-serving that anything she says must be taken with a grain of salt. Nonetheless, she makes many points that resonate deeply in her arguments and her critique of the gender power hierarchy. Alas, alas, that ever love was sin. By virtue of the state of the heavens at my birth, that made me that I could not withdraw my chamber of Venus from any good fellow. Yet I have Mars mark upon my face, and also in another private place. She must have a birthmark somewhere private, she won't tell us where. Whereas God may be my salvation, I never loved in moderation, but always followed my appetite, whether he were short or long, or black or white. I took no keep, as long as they pleased me. How poor he was, nor else what of rank. What should I say, but at the month's end, this jolly clerk, this Jenikin, who was so courteous, had wedded me with great solemnity. He was 20, she was 40, now they're married. For the first time in her life, since she was 12 years old, she's got herself a handsome young man after marrying all of these old men. Well, it's not going to be a perfect, happy marriage at first. To him, I gave all the land and property that ever was given to me before then. But afterward, I repented me bitterly. He would not allow me anything of my desires. By God, he hit me once on the ear because I tore a leaf out of his book, so that of the stroke, my ear became all deaf. She was some deal deaf. Remember the general prologue I mentioned to you? That's one of the first things that the narrator says. A little bit deaf. Now we know why. Her fifth husband had boxed her on the ear because she jumped up and tore a page out of this book he was reading and quoting from. Now we're going to hear about this book, why she got so angry that she had to tear out a page and throw it in the fire. Now will I tell you the truth by St. James, why I tore a leaf out of this book, for which he hit me so hard that I was deaf. He had a book that regularly, night and day, for his amusement, he would always read. He called it Valerie and Theophrastus, at which book he always heartily laughed. And also, there was once a clerk at Rome, a cardinal, who was called St. Jerome, that made a book against Jovinian, in which book also there was Tertullian, Chrysippus, Trotula, and Heloise, that was abbess, not far from Paris. And also the Parables of Solomon, Ovid's Art, and many other books. And all these were bound in one volume. And every night and day was his custom, when he had leisure and spare time from other worldly occupations, to read in this book of wicked wives. He knew of them more legends and lies than there are good women in the Bible. For trust it well, it is an impossibility that any clerk will speak good of women. But now to the point, why I told thee that I was beaten for a book by God. Upon a night, Jankin, that was master of our house, read on his book, as he sat by the fire, of Eve first, how for her wickedness was all mankind brought to wretchedness, for which Jesus Christ himself was slain, who bought us back with his heart's blood. Lo, here clearly of woman you may find that woman was the cause of the loss of all mankind. Then he read me how Samson lost his hair, sleeping his lover cut it with her shears, through which treason he lost both his eyes. Then he read to me, if I shall not lie, of Hercules and his Dianete, what caused him to set himself on fire. He forgot not a bit of the care and the woe that Socrates had with his two wives, how Xanthippe cast piss upon his head. According to legend, Socrates, the philosopher, had a really terrible, nagging scold of a wife. So she goes through a long list of these, and we'll skip over a few of them. He's reading night after night, out loud, by the fire, from this book, all these evil women, all the terrible things they did to their husbands. He just can't get enough of it, and she's fed up with it. And concerning this, he knew of more proverbs than in this world there grow grass or herbs. Better it is, he said, thy habitation be with a lion or a foul dragon than with a woman accustomed to scold. Better is, he said, to stay high in the roof than with an angry wife down in the house. They're so wicked and contrary. He said, a woman casts her shame away when she casts off her undergarment. And furthermore, a fair woman, unless she is also chaste, is like a gold ring in a sow's nose. He just has nothing good to say about a woman. If she's beautiful, she's not faithful. If she's ugly, he can't stand her. The wife says, when I saw he would never cease reading on this cursed book all night, all suddenly have I plucked 3 leaves out of his book right as he read, and also I with my fist so hit him on the cheek that in our fire he fell down back. And he leapt up as does a furious lion, and with his fist he hit me on the head. And on the floor I lay as I were dead. And when he saw how still I lay, he was frightened and would have fled on his way, till at last out of my swoon I awoke. Oh, hast thou slain me, false thief, I said, and for my land thus hast thou murdered me? Before I am dead, yet will I kiss thee. I'm dying, but give me a kiss. And near he came and kneeled gently down and said, dear Sister Allison, so help me God, I shall never again smite thee. What I have done, it is thyself to blame. You drove me to it, forgive it me, and that I beseech thee. And yet immediately I hit him on the cheek and said, thief, thus much am I avenged. Now will I die, I may no longer speak. But at the last, with much care and woe, we made an agreement between our 2 selves. He gave me all the control in my hand, to have the governance of house and land, and of his tongue and of his hand also, and made him burn his book immediately right then. And when I had gotten unto me, by mastery, all the sovereignty, and that he said, mine own true wife, do as you please the rest of all thy life. Guard thy honor, guard also my reputation. After that day, we never had an argument, as God may help me. I was to him as kind as any wife from Denmark into India, and also true, and so he was to me. And they lived happily ever after, for just a little while. And then sadly, Janikin also died. With that, I'll conclude this webcast. But, as always, if you have questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send me an email.